who's ready to curl up with a good book? Maybe a thriller or horror story? Well, if so, you've got to check out the latest book by this local lady right here, Viggy, Parr, Hampton. Viggy, it's great to see you again. You've just released your second book. Now, the first time we met you, your first book came out, and it was A Cold Night for Alligators, and that did really well when it first came out. The debut was fantastic. So now you've written your second book, another thriller. Tell us about this book and why you decided to write Much Too Vulgar.
Absolutely. So Much Too Vulgar is about a disturbed pre-med student named Keely who will do anything she can to get into med school, even if that means eliminating her competition.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so you have experience in that world because your background, you're an epidemiologist, you work for the CDC and graduated from Georgetown and Emory. Did that inspire you to write this, or you just drew on those experiences? Or where did this idea come from?
Well, I was an undergraduate at Georgetown, as you mentioned, in biology, and I got a front row seat to the pressure cooker of pre-med academia. And I wanted to see what would happen if you put somebody in that environment who was just ready to snap.
So Viggy, for somebody who's not really into horror, or why should they pick up your book? Who does this book appeal to in your mind?
I think a lot of people say they don't like horror because they have this misconception that it's all monsters, gore, blood, guts. But I think there are as many subgenres of horror as there are ice cream flavors. And horror's even in romance and fairy tales. So just because you think you don't like horror, I say you just haven't found your favorite horror ice cream flavor.
Now you also mix in comedy.
Yes.
All right, so explain that, because some of the folks who read your book said that, it's I guess, dark comedy, or explain that.
I've had people say they've laughed out loud, and I really think that humor is essential to a good horror novel. It's kind of like baking a cake. Bear with me.
Right,
yes,
please explain that one.
You need the flour and the sugar, but you also need nuts, salt, spice, chocolate chips, the things that make it really delicious and memorable. And I think that's what humor does for a good horror novel.
So Viggy, on the back of your book, you have some wonderful comments or blurbs from people who've read it.
Yes.
And what are they saying about your book?
So I reached out to several best-selling horror authors, and they read and reviewed the book before its publication. And they said things like it's brash and unapologetic, full of that dark humor, that it's the year's can't-miss hit, and that they've never rooted so hard for the villain to come out on top.
You're going to write your third book, or where are you in your third book? What's the process? Where
So
are you in that?
My third book, it's been written, it's a first draft,
Oh, okay.
and I'm in the process of editing it, hopefully for a spring release. It is set in the Richmond Hill, Savannah area.
Oh, okay. Can you tell us anything else about it?
It's about a killer jelly mold, and that's all I'll say. Lots of humor and horror in that
Speaking
one.
of humor, okay, and you also have a podcast. You want to remind people about that?
Yes, I have a podcast called Horror Humor Hunger, where we explore all things spooky. Each season is inspired by a book or a short story of mine, and at the end is a recipe inspired by that book.
There we go with the recipe again.
Yes.
All right, and so to get your book, you can find it wherever books are sold, including East Shaver Bookseller, where we are today. We want to say a special thank you to them for letting us come in to do this interview. What would you like to say for your fans you already have out there from the first book?
Well, for me, I'm a horror author, so all year round is spooky season, but I think this is the perfect spooky season read. It's got psychological terror, gallows humor, revenge fantasy. There's something for everyone. And Patty, if anybody wants a signed copy, you can find it here at eShaver.
All right, thank you, Viggy.
Thank you.